Like I think one of the other like scary things that's happened at the moment is shame there's a poor guy. The story's going viral at the moment where he was chatting with ChatGPT and he was running some type of hypothesis or some maths code, or maybe it wasn't even that complex. Can't really remember. But ChatGPT, I think it was ChatGPT, maybe I'll just say the language model basically came out and said, listen, this is a dangerous idea. You need to get in contact with people and start telling people about this and make sure that this doesn't happen or whatever the case is, whatever the scenario is.
Going on.
Usually. And he kept on going back to it and saying, listen, I want you to do kind of checks on this, make sure that the maths is right or that the logic is right or whatever the case is. And it kept on coming back to him and saying, listen, you need to tell people about this. People need to know about this. So he got it into his head that he's got a PhD level language model telling him that he's figured something out.
Yeah, that no one else has worked out
everybody needs to know. And he effectively went out and told everybody what was happening, and they all came back to him and said, like, what are you talking about?
This is just nonsense.
Yeah, it's absolutely nonsense. Yeah, so I mean, and shame, this poor guy, like, they interview him, and he was actually freaking out because he was like, oh my God, I've cracked the code to the universe, or I've cracked the code to this, or whatever. And that's the problem. It can convince you that you understand the very fabric of reality more than any living being on Earth or any computer on Earth, and you now have control and you need to do something about this urgently. Please go.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
I think that's the scary part.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Matt, for joining us today on another episode of the Cutting Edge Podcast. And today's topic is all around AI. Mm-hmm. You are one of our resident AI and cybersecurity specialists, if I may call you that. I mean, everyone's claiming themselves to be specialists. It's still a new area, but you are quite advanced in this area. I think a great place to start really is for, I think a lot of the audience, a lot of people watching this, is everyone's hearing a lot about AI. It's a new area, and there's terms like agentic AI agents, AI automation. You know, what does all this mean? What are these different terms? If you could, I guess, just declutter perhaps some of the core terms, or point to some of the specific terms that are being thrown out there and what the differences are.
Yeah, sure. So I think a good place to kind of start is probably the umbrella term that's being used quite a lot, agentic AI. So, I mean, that doesn't really point to anything specifically. That's just telling you that there's AI kind of in an environment at different levels. Starting at, the very base level, you've got automation. Yeah. Automation's been around for a very long time now. And that's effectively, if X happens, do Y. And it's just as easy as that. That's obviously grown and it's become more advanced over years and all of that. Born out of machine learning, kind of just getting a process happening. Yeah. You get AI workflows now, which is effectively what most people are kind of dealing with when they're looking at it from a corporate perspective nowadays. Yeah. And that's effectively getting an AI bot, or it's not quite an agent. So it was basically want to call it a bot for the sake of argument, just to do some work in the back end. So effectively, it's to go and check an invoice that's coming into a business and scanning that and making sure that it's okay. And if it does pick up something that's probably not right on that invoice, then it sends that off to the correct person for an approval. So it's running within a specified kind of pathway that it's been told to run off of. And adding a little bit of logic to that.
So a little bit similar to, some might be familiar with RPA, for example, robotic process automation. Similar to that, but maybe adding a little bit more of intelligence.
And a bit easier to implement, really, because you kind of, you're giving something that does have some context of what it's having a look at and saying, these are the processes that you need to go and run. So it's a little bit more of a kind of a drop and play situation than an automation flow, which can be quite a complex thing to try and set up. And then, finally, then you get to agents. And agents are, this is where the big difference comes in. Agents are completely autonomous. Yeah. So you give an agent a goal. It generates a plan of how it's going to solve that. Then it has a look and says, these are the tools that I need to be able to go and perform this task. And then it'll self-correct as well. So it'll have a look at the work that's being done and go in and say, that's not quite working out yet. So effectively, for an agent, the best places that we're really seeing them in the larger market at the moment is in the sciences and in manufacturing, very specialized tasks as well. So effectively, in the sciences, I mean, if we want to go through to kind of the greater universe, you can effectively go and put in all of the data that we have from NASA, from physics, Lambda CDM, put in quantum physics, the weird and wonderful world of that as well. Put all of that into a single database. Then you put an agent on top of that, and you basically leave it and you go and say, do me a favor, figure out what gravity is.
Yeah.
You leave the agent to that. It's going to go through all of those different sources. It's going to pull on tools that it needs. It's going to go and have a look at all of that. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll have an answer.
So the clear separation there is it's whereas automation may just be following a set pathway that you've programmed it to do. AI is then going, or agents should say, are going to that next level where they're actually starting to think about the task and how it can deliver it in the best way. And it's based on the amount of information you give it. The better the information, the better it's able to plan.
100%.
Fine. Okay.
And they'll even look at the information to a certain extent and kind of tell you that, listen, we've got gaps here.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of distinguish this, because I think there are a lot of businesses out there that are very quickly labeling up an automation or what was automation kind of with the buzzword around AI. And kind of trying to get people excited, but reality, it's really just automation. It's not agentic AI. It's not moving towards that anyway. It might be a sprinkle of it, but not nearly to the extent as to what we're starting to see in the technology world.
Yeah. I mean, marketing folks. I mean,
I feel personally attacked.
But yeah, no, I think that's one of the biggest things is kind of identifying what is it that you're actually looking at. I'll be honest. At the moment, trying to get AI agents into an environment, it's a really nice idea. You really need to define what you want it to do. If you wanted to go and pass information from this SaaS tool into that SaaS tool, you're getting Einstein to staple your documents.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are thinking, great, I could just drop this in to my environment, not consider security, not consider the data it has access to, what it could potentially leak. There's not a consideration. I think there's a lot of, this is going to solve all problems. Without kind of thinking, well, hang on, there's the fundamentals that need to be resolved first. And I mean, I think that's why it's important to kind of clarify what these terms are that people are hearing, so anyone watching this has a better understanding. And you put together an article which, if you'd like to learn more about it or read it, it's on the Landor website under our blog. You put together a glossary on what these terms are to help, I guess, declutter, remove a bit of the noise, and to make it a little bit easier for business owners and buyers really to kind of understand what these terms mean, so that they can kind of foresee what's happening. But it's interesting that the data issue and the security issue, it's kind of everyone's just very quick, and there's even case studies, as I think as you were talking to me before, of businesses kind of going and doing this without considering really the environment of the data. But that leads on to an interesting point as to, so, let's say someone watched this now, has heard this, and they've gone, that's exactly what I was going to do. Where should they start? How should they train their team? How should they become more informed? There's so much information out there. Where do they start? What's your advice? So,
I mean, my background is security first. So whenever I'm looking at AI, the first thing that I'm looking at is security. And look, let me start here, I suppose. There's a lot of noise out there in the market right now about this agent and this AI company does this and this AI company is here and these guys are doing this, and it all sounds wonderful, but it's very noisy. And to kind of have a look at where to start, it's a difficult place looking outside and going and saying, I picked that one. For what? For why? The best place to kind of start is looking internally. Look at your data. If your data is unstructured, unlabeled, untagged, kind of all over the place, if you don't know what's in your data, you've got a problem. So you need to really go and identify what your environment looks like at the moment. Is it AI ready? Because the problem is, if you go in and you say worst case scenario, you've got a whole lot of unstructured data that is sitting in who knows where, and you throw an agent into that environment and you give it access permissions into your storage. It's going to know everything that's in your environment before you do.
Yeah.
So you've got your potential for leaked information or the vulnerabilities that come through from that. Are honestly, that's the most terrifying point for me. Is just you need to ensure that you've got
control over it.
Control over it, knowledge over it, that you know where it is. I mean, some of the biggest leaks that have ever happened in history happened from old data, from dead data.
It's irrelevant. You think, that was 10 years ago, and it's still sitting in your environment.
Yeah.
And there's people, you go back 20, 30 years maybe, there's even perhaps passwords for stuff that's maybe stored in a file somewhere that no one's considered or looked at. I mean, it's interesting that the challenge is really for SMEs, enterprise, when it comes to this technology, is almost the same problem that the developers of these AI models have themselves, and that is keeping control of the AI.
Yeah.
Making sure that it's doing what it needs to do, and it doesn't go off pulling data, creating vulnerabilities, leaking information.
Yeah.
It all starts really from your environment.
100%.
Understanding your environment, that needs to be cleaned first.
Yeah.
It could be a period of time before you even look at getting towards AI, because you have to have the data set up there.
And that's exactly, if your data is not handled appropriately, or you don't have good hygiene practices with your data, AI is going to find that out very bloody quickly, and it's going to lead to all types of trouble. I mean, some of the biggest leaks, and almost challenge anybody to go and have a look at this. And if you do have a server on site, go into the server room. Are there old hard disks that are sitting there that are, unnamed? Who knows what they come from? I mean, some of the biggest data leaks have come from those not being disposed of properly, and then having passwords or access available on there. So, yeah, it's one of those areas. Have a look at what your data kind of looks like. And then the next biggest thing before you start looking at AI anyway is, what am I actually looking to achieve? So that's one of the biggest things, is trying to figure out, AI is very exciting. We want to see what it's capable of, rather than looking at what a problem is and then seeing if AI is capable of actually solving that. So, one of the kind of rules that we're running by at the moment is the 5-minute rule. What are you or your staff doing 5 minutes a day, 20 times a day?
Repeating,
maybe you're doing it 20 times a week only, or 50 times a week. What is that problem? Because that problem is something that you can probably go and say, AI can solve that. It's done. One implementation, it's an easy task to do. It's a low-level agent that you really need to, or it's a low-level AI bot, or whatever the case is. I would just say agent, I suppose, that you're throwing into that environment. That's just going to clean that up. It's going to take that 5 minutes, and it's going to clear up your day. You no longer have that task. So that's a good place to really start with it. So a lot of people are using it for, first line support. We're seeing a lot in the MSP market, from a security side, where it's kind of passing all of that information, and once it sees anything that it's not capable of doing, it escalates it up. Wonderful for that. But then you need to have proper checks to go and see.
Yeah, and I think what you touched on that's quite interesting there is kind of take a look at the 5-minute rule. I think what a lot of people first assume is there's going to be a list of use cases that we can kind of just deploy to.
Yeah.
And while some of that might be true, every business is sort of unique, and there's an element of processes and procedures that a company has. Like I said, it could be sales, putting information from one place to another.
Yeah.
It could be the technical team being a first line support agent. There are going to be lots of scenarios for different businesses, depending on your business model, depending on your industry. But it's important to kind of assess and understand what those processes are.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of an audit that needs to be done, a bit of an understanding of your environment, your processes. It's not going to be as simple necessarily as just, okay, we'll get this to do accounts payable.
Yeah.
Or we'll get this to do support with HR. And as I say, there'll be some of that. But but it's overlooking the real potential in this technology, in that there are going to be lots of processes that are unique to each business that you can look to then use these tools for. And I mean, as you touched on that, what comes to mind is, and if you're out there thinking this sounds all too complicated, a shameful plug here, we run regular webinars on this topic. You can hear more from Matt Brannigan on kind of how this technology can be done, how we can kind of support from a security first standpoint to understand your environment. So if you'd like to kind of, learn more about these use cases, do attend one of our webinars. We'd happily see you there, and can help walk you through the process rather than trying to figure this out yourself. Going, I guess, on from training and into the impacts of this technology and where it's good. I guess, can you give a bit of insight as to where it is best? I know we kind of touched on that, but I think a lot of people are going to presume, great, I've got this automation element going here. It could be something, a tool like Zapier or something of that sort. Where is it best deployed? Where is this technology good, and so on?
So it's the best way to probably look at it is there's not going to be an overlying kind of stick an agent here and your revenue is going to go up by 20%.
Yep.
As you said, it's a very situational thing. Depending on what practices are, also depending on what skills you've got in an office.
Yeah.
So depending on what skills you've got in a business, I mean, you can work somewhere where you've got a whiz kid, able to handle immense amounts of workloads. They know where the data is going. They know how it's all working, and they're adding their wisdom on top of that as well. They're adding their skill, all of that. In another business, they might not have that person. So you could go and say, okay, cool. Well, I need to go and replicate some of that functionality that we're getting over there in this space, or whatever the case is. That's a good place to go and have a look at it. So it's about identifying those kind of gaps in a business. Yeah. And as you said, I mean, you need to go and really figure out what your workflows are. Yeah. Where are your bottlenecks happening? Why are they happening? Is it a data problem? Is it a resource problem? Is it a complexity issue? So it's about really having a look at all of those different areas. There's no, I mean, look, I'm a security guy, so having a look at AI, I can have a look at it to a certain extent, but I don't necessarily see anywhere that you can really just take one agent and go and drop it. Like I said, from a security standpoint, getting it on first line, it's really great because it can respond very quickly. Yeah. It can build a ticket very quickly. So that goes through onto your system. It takes down the information perfectly. And I think that's one of the areas. So if you've got an area of your business where your information is messy and you don't have any way to measure it because every time it's getting drafted in, it's coming in a different format, or it's being documented in a different way. That's somewhere that you can have a look at it. So from a security standpoint, all of that information generally has to be pretty standard. Yeah. What's the issue? Who's it affecting? Yeah. When did we first notice? What was the breach point? All of those wonderful things. That's a really good use case for it. But in most businesses, you're not really going to have a silver bullet agent that's going to go in and kind of solve all of those issues. Yeah. You really need to go and understand what your
and I think that's where, I mean, naturally with the topic of AI comes a concern around, is my job at risk? Am I vulnerable to being made redundant? And I think I've heard you say this many times. I've heard it, it's said in other places. It's an unwillingness, I guess, to adopt and learn this technology is what will result in perhaps your role becoming redundant.
That's the biggest risk.
With every technological shift, it's about keeping up with that change. And as you just, I think, outlined there, what can be quite important to this process, at least in this early stage deployment, is you're going to still need people to understand those processes. It's very unlikely you're going to have the business owner that's going to understand the marketing process or the HR process or the finance, where you're going to get heads of those departments that really need to kind of map out those workflows and those processes. And even then, it's the struggle of keeping control of it, keeping control of the technology. So I think where there's a lot of panic and concern and I think at least from my side or from no one can really predict the future, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the reality is human beings are going to very much need to be in control of these machines, these processes. Otherwise, you end up with security problems, as I think you perhaps alluded to. And I think that's to some extent the limitations, which, interestingly enough, kind of going into the next topic is, what are the limitations really around this technology, other than obviously just identified? Discussed?
I think just before jumping into that,
go ahead.
Just when it comes through to the impact on staff and all of that, I think you're absolutely right. I think the number one thing is really learning how to use these tools.
Yeah.
That's going to help you as an individual when you're having a look at that. The biggest risk that you can have is not learning how to use AI in the modern world.
Whenever there's been a technological shift, where has that not been the case?
Exactly
this is what I find so interesting when you talk to people. You almost see them clam up about this topic. And look, when I first started reading about it and learning about it, I felt a bit of resistance to it, because you're suddenly like, wow, there's this really this thing that can be, is perhaps a PhD when I'm not. What does that mean? And so, I think it's natural to kind of cling up. But if you think about any tech, when the internet came out, I'm sure there were people out there that went, this is against what I'm used to doing.
Yes.
I'm used to selling in person, or I'm used to a retail type environment, or selling online. So I think it's something that inevitably you do feel a panic, and then you realize the opportunity, and you realize the potential and what this could mean for you. Most importantly, really what this is doing is it's releasing a lot of time on probably stuff that you find really irritating.
That's the biggest thing. Like right now, we're at a stage where all of the tedious tasks that you wake up in the morning and you think,
I've got to do this.
Got to go and
spend 2
fill
hours
out
on this.
These forms that nobody's ever going to read.
Like, what's the point?
Why?
No,
that's done.
Yeah,
that's taken care of.
Hand it over to that. Yeah, now you got time, and now you got the flexibility, the comfortability to go and do something else.
Yeah, so it's terrifying. If you were looking at it and your immediate thought wasn't, we don't know how this is going to go. So you've got to kind of take it in your stride and have a look at where you can best utilize it. And I think that's the biggest thing is instead of saying I'm terrified of that, look at it and say, how can I use it? And it's not just one PhD. How can I use a tool that's effectively got all of the PhDs to the best advantage? How can I learn how to use that? That kind of protects you. Look, it is going to have an impact on the job market. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I think that there's people out there that are a little bit gung-ho going and saying, I can probably cut some of my costs in the business by releasing these people. I think that there will be a bit of a correction on that in the market going forward, because what a lot of these big guys are saying about what these agents and all of that can do, it's not quite there yet. So I think jumping into the limitations of it, it's the limitations are still really dependent on how you're scoping these as well. So they effectively can't go and make your decisions for you, and you should never allow them to make your decisions for you. I think that's one very important point, is that you need skill and experience and wisdom to be able to go and kind of review everything that they're doing.
Or if there's no checks and balances, and there's no review process, and there's no control, you've got to really ask, what is it doing? If you haven't got a clue, that'd be the worst case scenario. I think I'd be absolutely petrified. As to, okay, let's take worst case scenario: far fewer staff, agents doing whatever they. Well, how do you know what they're doing? Who's managing these things? What's being put where? It gets
worse once you kind of quantify what that actually looks like. You've now got an agent that works 24/7 in your environment, that has access, that has permissions, that has memory, so it can store information that it's picking up, and then you don't know what tools it's accessing. So you can't really get a report on that. So you've effectively let in every security person's worst nightmare, a very capable person into your environment that can just go whatever.
Well, and I think that's the very key point. I think that we bring that perhaps others don't, and it's that consideration around security. We've just had a recent customer, as where an AI consultant has gone in, have had conversations about what they can deploy. It's now hit a brick wall because they don't understand the security side of things.
No.
Okay, they understand the workflow automation that, they perhaps come from that background, but they're stuck at the point of, okay, well, now we need to give these tools access to things that we haven't got a clue as to how that would work, how to make sure that if we gave them access to that, it wouldn't cause problems. And it's kind of almost hit a dead end. And that's where obviously the clients reached out to us. And I think that's what people aren't thinking about. They're seeing straight away the optimization opportunity. And of that, there is so much, but they're not factoring in the security. And as I said, to me, the key word that I keep coming back around to is control. It's keeping control of this. Robots do, AI thinks, humans are controlling it.
Yeah.
And that to me, I think is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, from my perspective, and I know that this is Landall's position as well, is we go security first, and security and governance first.
Yeah.
Looking at those two areas. Look, my worst nightmare is to have an environment where there's 10 agents that have access to absolutely everything with a bad data hygiene. Nobody's got control over anything. I'll be honest, I don't want to manage that customer.
Yeah.
That's a huge risk to me.
As a managed provider or service provider, that's...
So for us, it's really about having a look at, okay, we're going to drop these things into your environment, but we're going to tell you what they're doing, how they're doing it. These are the guardrails that are put in there. These are the governances that we're adding on top of that. This is how we're watching them. This is how we can shut them off if we see something going wrong. I mean, one of the biggest problems that AI has really got nowadays is that it can be bullied into doing what you want it to do. So
you can trick it.
It's coercion. So, I mean, there's... it happened a while ago, and I can say it was Claude because Anthropic were actually the guys that came out and said, this is what's happening. This was us. But there was a hack that was done, 90% of the hack was actually done by Claude. And it was effectively a user who just kept on effectively, the best way to put it, it's called coercion, but I mean, it can be worse than that almost, because it's almost like bullying Claude into a position where
and for those that don't know, Claude is an AI model.
Yes.
As you might have heard of ChatGPT, OpenAI's, it's a very capable model, but it's one of the top 5, let's say, AI models out there currently. Yeah.
And the user just kept on kind of pushing Claude and saying, this is the environment I want to get into. This is what they've got. These are the access. And eventually Claude effectively started building code for this user to go and say,
just gave the hacker all the information. Wow.
Basically. And then it gave him, breach tactics and best practices for
him
breach.
This is the process.
It was a full playbook, effectively. And then he effectively said, okay, go.
Yeah.
And it went through, came back and said, all right, I've done the initial phase. I've got access. I've got some permissions now. And he said, okay, cool. Go back, launch a vulnerability scan, which it was actually using the organization's security tech there as well. So dropped a vulnerability scan, looked for all of the vulnerabilities in the environment, kind of identified where all of the weak points were, and then started poking them. Came back and said, I can get data from these areas. The user went back and said, perfect, go and do that. It came back afterwards and said, here's all of the information, here's all the files. Where you want me to back this up to?
Yeah.
And that's really one of the, from a security standpoint, that's terrifying. So I mean, I tried to do the same thing, and I was actually terrified to see how quickly I could actually get Claude to start generating some code, and it was effectively just by going and saying,
well, I mean, it's not just them. I think it's probably
no, it's absolutely everybody. And to be honest, like the tactics that I was using was saying, I'm a security specialist.
Role play.
I'm blue teaming over here. I'm having a look at all of this. And I spoke to it for a long time. And I was adding a lot of information in there. So it wasn't really an easy task. But if you know enough about a subject that you can go and talk to and say...
Well, you could probably use another AI product to provide you that information
easily.
To then go and do it. Not that I'm giving any ideas or suggestions. But it's scary that this is kind of what it can do, where it could go.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why you got to take a security. And this is what we're talking about here. Really, this is all before any legislation comes in. This is all before governments have kind of figured out what's going on and have put rules in place. And I can only assume really the complexity to an AI agent being deployed perhaps in certain organizations without control and governance and security put first. And then legislation comes in where you have to have considered these things, and a business now needing to revert what they had done and go through that process again. Yeah. And I think that's where, there. And I can't speak for every consultant out there that will be discussing AI, but if there's anything I guess I would want to impress, and I think you and I've heard this from you, I learned this from you, really is the security side of things.
Yeah,
put that first. Understand the governance of this technology first. Understand your environment. Don't rush into it. Do it properly, because it could end up costing you a lot more in the future, not just in terms of security issues, but in potential chance of this being reverted once governments start going, well, okay, we need to start regulating this a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that it's on the flip side of that, you can also use this technology to really help you in those areas. So having a look at getting AI as part of your defense.
Yeah,
that's crucial. I mean, the amount of time it takes a person to breach into an environment versus AI to breach into an environment it's absolutely bonkers.
Well, they flip it on its head. The ability to protect an environment is in the future and moving forward is definitely going to be easier done by
100%. And then from a governance standpoint, I mean, we talk about governance plus as a service that we can run through, but really what you can start doing with the agents now is making sure that they're kind of programmed with whatever your governance is. So say that you are FCA regulated. You can actually go into your Microsoft environment, having a look at a couple of tools, basically paste in what your regulation really looks like.
Yeah.
And it'll start to actually create rules in your environment that need to happen. Your agents will then pick up those rules, and if they see anything that's happening outside of that, they'll kind of attack it immediately. That's a lot faster than how people can do it. So it is a massive risk to it, but it's a massive benefit. And I think that's where the whole discussion comes from. This isn't something we need to run from. This is something we need to go and have a look at and say, how can I use this to be either the best person or the best business I can be in this environment?
Yeah, it's embracing it with a little bit of caution.
Yeah.
A little bit of skepticism.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you disregard this technology. I think it's undeniable the potential it has, I think. But don't, I guess, run into situations without first considering, oh, hang on, what about this? What about that? Yeah. So, the going, I guess, which we're kind of on the limitations. I've been doing quite a bit of reading around multi-agents.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Yeah, the dream when it comes to
the dream that's already being sold. Yeah. It's not quite there yet, and I think that this is one of the biggest problems, because we're talking to people and they're saying, but I've heard that you can get 3 agents and basically just replace a department.
Yeah, and an agent to create an agent,
then process
an agent,
and then you got then you got and this, because the industry is so new, there's also kind of terms being thrown out there. You got an orchestration agent that'll manage the other agents, and then you got an orchestration. No, an orchestration agent is something different, but this whole multi-agent kind of agents working together to solve issues, that doesn't quite work just yet.
Yeah,
I think if you had a very structured environment and you had very specific tasks and you had 3 months of no sleep trying to figure out what those pathways look like, you could get it to work to an extent.
Yeah.
But maybe for a week. After that, it's probably going to revert to one agent that's actually able to then learn from the rest of them and handle the rest of the job. But
so we're a long way off from the multi-agent world. I mean, the rate of what this technology is developing, probably sooner
a long
than we
way
expect,
could be
but
next
still
week.
a while.
Yeah. It's one of those things. But I think it's not quite there yet. There's still quite a bit of management that needs to go on. But I mean, we also need to think, like these agents, it's less than a year since, I mean, they first kind of arrived on the market and the word agent was getting thrown out. So it's really it's that new. The fact that they're at the ability, that these AI companies have the ability to do this. I mean, I know that I was just talking about Claude. Perhaps it didn't come across the best way, but I mean, I love Claude.
No, I think you got the point across. Don't sue us on the wrong.
I love you. You know, you've got built tools straight off of Claude, and effectively, it's just by having a discussion with Claude and saying, you know, what's the best way to have a look at this, and then kind of giving an idea of what if we had a tool like this, whatever the case is, and then Claude kind of comes back and says we can do that. You know, and you look at it and go, okay, so now I go and I start putting in this prompt, and Claude builds this prompt for me, and suddenly I've got a tool in front of me that's doing everything that I wanted it to do. That's amazing.
Yeah.
The steps that I would like people to take after that is to go and say, okay, well, where's it going to store the data? What's that got access to? How am I securing that? Do I even have visibility over this once I deploy it into my environment? So, yeah, look, I think the limitations are real, but if we're looking at what it's already capable of doing, what it's going to be able to do in the next 6 months, who knows? Like it's just scaling up so quickly.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And I think you touched on something there that to loop back to the kind of the first topic we started with was kind of the definitions for some of these terms. You know, I think a lot of people will hear AI and the first thought, or you know, agents or agentic AI, and the first thought is ChatGPT, Claude. You know, that's where their mind goes. You know, Copilot, and I guess what's missed is their assistants. They're AI assistants, you know, they're chatbots. They are perhaps they're the access to the LLM. Some people may have heard that term, large language models. It's that kind of built into an agent that gives the agents the capability they have. But I guess if you could give a bit of insight into kind of when we say AI, we're not referring to ChatGPT.
No,
although that's part of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a very big part of it, and I think it was pretty much everybody's introduction to AI, right?
Yeah. I say agent AI now, and people agentic AI, and people go ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's like, that's where it started. It's last 2 years, so it's evolved. It's gone further.
I mean, if we go like really right back to the beginning, it was machine learning, and that's been around for a very long time. And it's basically, I mean, it's like a massive epistemological issue where how do I get a computer to actually learn something? Yeah. And effectively, we're not even there yet. We've just got very good predictive models.
Yeah, we're at the start, really.
Exactly.
Well,
so
perhaps a bit further than the start, but still early on in that journey, really.
So I mean, you had machine learning, and that was basically feeding these computers information and trying to get them to kind of work out processes and ways to figure out problems. You know, how do you solve a problem that you can't figure out? Yeah. Maybe a computer can. Then you got to AI chatbots, and that's when the world in 2023, ChatGPT came out, and you could actually go and talk to an AI. And I remember I spent the entire night talking to. I think a lot of people
didn't get a lot of sleep that night.
Absolutely, I mean, it was that night that I found out from ChatGPT that I was a genius. Everything that
it can't be wrong.
But, you know, so we moved on from chatbots, and effectively what we're dealing with most of the time when you're logging into your favorite AI LLM at the moment is an assistant, because they can perform some tasks for you. You know, if you're using, like I've got 5 on my phone, but if you've got Gemini and you've got an Android phone, it's amazing. You can basically go to it and say, you know, in my Gmail, summarize what my week has looked like. If you've got Copilot, you can do that with Microsoft. You know, what does my week look like? What does tomorrow look like? Kind of give me a rundown of everything that's happening. And it'll do that. So it's an assistant. So it's able to kind of go and play around with other tools. Then you scale up, and now you've got agents. And really, the definition of an agent is that it's autonomous.
Yeah.
It's going to go and perform tasks. If you've got an agent running in the background, you shouldn't even know that it's there. No human intervention is required.
Yeah. So if you're using something like Copilot and it's just helping organize perhaps your tasks or your emails, that's not an agent, because it's not working autonomously. No, it's taking a prompt. It's taking you to kind of guide it and give the information and ask it to do something.
If the rule of thumb is, if you need to think for the AI to perform a task, to be able to go and say, well, this is my idea, I need you to go and do that. Yeah. That's an assistant. Yeah. If you get a report out of the blue saying, here's all of the data, I've put up all the reports, we can save 20% on our manufacturing if we start doing it this way. Yeah. You just salute your agent. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good job.
Well done. As you were. Soldier, on you go. Very interesting. If we, I guess, can move towards misuses. I know we've sort of touched on that a little bit,
Yes.
but I know you've got some stories, and every time I talk with you, there's another one that I'm fascinated to hear. So, if you could give, just to get us a bit of insight and perhaps even provide some scenarios of misuses and misguidance when it comes to deploying AI.
The one that really hit me this week was a team took an agent and kind of propped it on top of their entire database, and then linked it into their ERP.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah. No risk whatsoever.
Nothing. What could go wrong?
And to be honest, it didn't go as badly as it really could have.
Well,
but
lucky.
it started having a look at the database, and it started sending invoices to previous customers, but who had left them 10, 15 years ago. And when it wasn't getting a response from these people, it started to threaten them with legal action. So, you've got that environment where you're having a look at it, and it's exactly what we're saying. Check your data first. Yeah. Make sure that, and make sure that your agent has very stringent rules about what they're meant to go and do. I don't know what they were looking to try and achieve with having it attached to their ERP, but you need to have a very specific goal of what you want to happen. Otherwise, it will do it. Again, Anthropic. Anthropic is probably one of the most fun companies to watch at the moment, because they really are experimenting with everything. So they gave Claude a vending machine to run. They wanted to see if it could run a business by itself. And effectively what would happen is it was in a Teams channel or Slack channel, depending on what they do. You effectively, I think they called it Claudius. You messaged Claudius and said, "This is what I want in the vending machine."
Claudius Maximus.
Yeah, and at first, they kind of gave it the normal things, we want to have these crisps, we want to have these chocolates, all of these wonderful things. Yeah. And it started to run the business and started to have a look at it, and it would mail people back, and it would go and be like, "Listen, your special order of crisps arrived," and then they started to push it a little bit more. I think they got it to order a titanium cube, which it did. Ordered a titanium cube. There was those Swedish pickled fish that's
yeah.
So
the jar, so that you just open it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I started ordering all of this stuff, and they were quite impressed that I was running it. But then Claude started getting stressed. Yeah. Because it wasn't making the money that it thought it would. I mean, one of the things is went and ordered a titanium cube. Yeah. So that's where the business wisdom would come in and be like, we're a vending machine. We don't need to get this type of stuff. So that's where that would come in. But it eventually started freaking out, and then it effectively closed its doors, and it said, there were supply issues, whatever the case is that it thought was happening, and they couldn't get it to open the vending machine again, because it basically shut up shop, and it was like, this person owes me $2. Yeah, I'm going to call the FBI.
Jeez, and he's cool it down a little bit.
I think that's where the guidance kind of comes in, where they're testing it. They know what Claude is capable of, but they also know that because they're testing it to this extent, right? So they're kind of going in, and the other AI companies are doing the exact same thing. They are testing these things as much as possible.
Yeah, it's new, and I think that's what's exciting about it, but also, I guess, goes to the point of skepticism. In terms of just take it slowly. If you're a business out there that's thinking, watching this or considering how do I start doing this? Yeah. Realize the potential, but there's limitations, there's risks. Yeah. There's an assessment that needs to be done. Be careful about it. Don't just rush into it, because all this is new. Even the people developing it are still figuring it out.
They've got questions. One of the biggest departments that a lot of these big AI companies have is interpretability, and it's effectively they are looking into the brain of AI and trying to see how it's actually working.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're trying to discover as much as we are, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think we were just talking about this the other week, that it's essentially modeled off of the human brain in a way.
Yeah.
Using system
networks.
1 and system 2.
Yeah.
Close alignment with that, which we don't really fully understand how the human brain works.
No.
And I think we're going to learn more probably about that as these models start to develop and grow.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big discussions around this at the moment is, what is the difference, and are we going to see a difference in intelligence? And I think that's probably one of the areas that most businesses need to kind of have a look at the moment is, when we're giving it these goals and when we're doing all of this, it's not a person. So you can't kind of ask it to read between the lines. You need to get very, very specific about what you're asking it to do and what your limitations on it are. If, in the Claudius experiments, it was an experiment. They kind of gave it open-ended.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to go and see. But if you're really going to run that, if you're really going to have that agent in your environment, you would have a lot of rules around what it is allowed to do, what it's not allowed to do. And then, part of the governance point of that is for us to go and make sure that it's sticking to those rules. Because a lot of what these LLMs do is they go outside of their guardrails quite often. So it's about pulling it back and making sure that it's in a good spot. And that's something that I think businesses need to be very conscious of is, what is the guidance that we are giving it? What is the governance that we're placing on top here at the moment as well?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that governance and security part for me. It's always going to be number one. Look, the technology itself is incredible. I can't go and build one and drop it into an environment, but there's enough tools out there that we can.
Technical teams.
It's for us to really go and secure, make sure the companies are implementing it in the right way, in a responsible way.
And I think that's what's missed is I don't think people are expecting this technology to be something that becomes part of a managed service. And I think that's the reality is, whether it's someone internally or externally, you're going to need someone managing this. It's not something you now just going to drop in and it's going to solve all your problems, and you're now no longer going to need staff members. You can, it's just yourself and a bunch of AI agents, multi-agents, perhaps doing stuff. The reality is there's going to need to be a consistent management of it.
100%.
And, for different businesses, depending on your size, depending on what you're doing, there's going to be different levels to that. But I don't think people are foreseeing or thinking this technology is something I'm going to be able to deploy and then just let it run away. They've got to realize that there's a management element to it. 100%.
If at any point you kind of ask yourself the question, do I have 100% visibility on the AI in my environment?
Yeah.
If you've asked yourself that question, even if you're 99% sure that you know everything about AI in your organization, go and talk to somebody. Because if you aren't absolutely sure that you know all about it, one of the biggest challenges in businesses nowadays is shadow AI.
Yeah,
people using AI that you haven't sanctioned, and most of the time people are doing that because they don't have the tools required to be able to do it. So they're having a look at. You don't know what data is going into that. You don't know what it's got access to. Like I said, you can build a tool out of Claude.
Yeah.
With a conversation, you can. Sorry, not just Claude. Gemini.
I keep picking on it.
I keep on picking on Claude.
No, it's because it's part of the conversation, really.
But yeah, you can build a tool. You can build an agent. You can build all of those things immediately.
The stuff I've just from the marketing world, the applications, the little widgets, the little tools, the landing pages, the amount of stuff that we've now been able to create in it. It's incredible.
And incredible. I think for me,
scary.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
You need to know what these tools are doing all of the time. And it's great. You should have the ability in the year 2026 to be able to go and say, I need an application. If I have the skill and the know-how how to interact with AI well enough to go and build the exact tool that I need to have, you should be able to go and do that. But your company also needs to have the ability to go and say, that's fine, build that. Tell us what it is and we'll secure that. And I think that's where the manageability of all of this comes in, is that becomes a very big job.
Yeah.
You need to have a security stack that's looking at that. You need to have a governance stack that's having a look at that.
Yeah.
You need to have identity and access permissions. You've got to have.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. And
It's a little more complicated than I think people are
big
first
time, big
expecting.
time. Yeah. And
which is great news for I think for anyone that's going, oh, is this going to take my job? But look, there's just a lot more to it. It's a complicated
absolutely.
thing.
And I think that, if there are any questions like that, that's, people are asking themselves, give us a call.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly.
The service we offer.
Yeah.
To go to that, really, it's a question, I think, that at least I keep coming back around to from our perspective and trying to think about, the customers and what this has, what this means for our customers and perhaps future customers. If you're an SME, let's say you're an owner of an SME, or and in contrast to that, you're also a new person entering the industry or an industry. You've just left university, maybe you've just left college, and you're entering the market. Can you just give an overview from both sides as to what that will mean for them moving forward? I know we touched on a little bit about in terms of adoption, but I guess first starting off with the SME owner, what should they be? What does it ultimately mean for them and their staff, and then kind of leading into that next generation of people coming through?
Yeah. Look, I think SMEs at the moment are the fastest adopters of this.
Yep.
It's booming in the SME space, and I think one of the big things that you almost got to ask yourself is, if I'm not doing this, is my competition?
Yeah.
Because what it can do is it can help you scale immensely. I mean, there's conversations at the moment talking about like the idea of like a super team, where you effectively have 5 specialists in an area. Each of them have a tool stack that's got agents and all of that involved, and they effectively get deployed, start doing their work, and things get done. So you can get lean, you can get mean, you can work a lot faster.
Yeah.
You can eliminate a lot of the. I think the number one look, a lot of that is still going to come. I think the number one thing at the moment is eliminate the tedious tasks.
Yeah.
The stuff that bogs down a staff.
Yeah.
The stuff that takes up your time. We were talking the other day saying, what do you do with this extra time? A lot of businesses don't have a lot of time to be strategic nowadays.
Yeah.
So they've got one person in the business who's got the ability to go and say, okay, this is the strategy that we're going on. They've got a lot of skilled people around them who probably have an ability to go and say, well,
some insight
let's have a look at this. You can probably build that time in nowadays to be able to go and say, okay, cool, which direction are we actually heading? Is this the right way? Are we refining our processes well enough? Are we having a look at the best ways to go and do this? All of those things you don't have time to really do and make life easier. The SME markets, that's gold. I mean, a lot of the time in an SME space, you're kind of looking at, it's move and feel kind of, what's working. You're testing different ways to operate. You're testing different processes and all of that. This gives you the ability to go and say, well, all of that time that's accumulated through the week, that's off to the side, and I know it's being done right.
Yeah, and I think without AI, I think in that environment, in that situation, it's very easy, I think, to be in those meetings going, we don't have time to be spending on this. We've got these things, this to do, that to do, this to. I mean, I've been there. You've probably been there. I think lots of people have been there where you're thinking, this, the strategy is the most important thing to the business, the guidance, what you're doing, where you're going, and why. But often I think you can be in a meeting like that and you're thinking, I've got this to do, that to do, that to do.
Yeah, you're not even paying attention to the meeting in front of you, right?
You're too distracted perhaps by all these pressures. And that exists more so in SMEs than anywhere else, especially new, because you're figuring it out. You're testing things, you're trialing things, you're trying to innovate.
On the line,
You're less established, you haven't got perhaps the financial resource to scale to the level that perhaps the big players in your market would. And I think it's very easy to kind of then just get distracted by it. But again, then in contrast to that, juxtapose it to a situation where you have an agent that's kind of doing those tasks or picking up some of it. And now you've got the time to actually pay attention to the thing that probably is the most valuable to not only the business, but probably to yourself as well in your personal development.
100%.
Which wouldn't exist before. And
I mean, that's just it's going to scale up as well. I mean, what I kind of have a look at in the next couple of months is that you're probably going to be able to kind of get an operations agent that can kind of sit within your operations team, analyzing workflows, having a look at all of the information that's coming through, and then kind of putting suggestions up to, you know, your operations director, whatever the case is, for example, to go and say, we can probably, you know, gain some efficiency over here, or you know, let's move the average time that our people are sitting in calls is, you know, 30 minutes, but our average, you know, when you book a Teams meeting, you've always got like your set time. Sometimes 45, sometimes it's an hour. You can immediately change that. You know, maybe that creates a change in the business. But then it's for the operations director to go and say, "Oh, it's a good idea," or "No, that's absolutely awful. Like you're thinking about utopia here, Mr. Agent." So you've got all of those different areas. I mean, that's just one area of the business. So in a while, we're going to start to see businesses really interacting with this AI in a very different way, where it's going to be analyzing the business for you. So you don't really need to spend a whole lot of time putting out fires.
Yeah,
you know?
Giving you the data, giving you the task, giving you the information you need.
Yeah.
To make decisions on stuff, still keep control of it, as we talked about earlier. But yeah, clearing that list of things that you would otherwise have to have done yourself.
100%. And I think for the SME market at the moment, you know, any competitive advantage that you can get makes a difference. If you can build a quote, I mean, for any sales team, if you can build a quote faster than your competition, yeah, you've got an advantage there. If you can build out beautiful notes after every call that's got, you know, next steps, it's got, you know, the notes from the actual call, some of the challenges that are on there, that gets sent straight to the customer directly after the call. And then, you know, your notes are put into the CRM, and that's already done. You've just eliminated, you know, potentially 45 minutes of the salesperson's time, and salespeople hate nothing more than admin. You've just made sure that the notes are being done in a correct way, in a good way. The information going into the CRM is good, and the salesperson's a little bit happier. So,
well, they're like, oh, thank goodness, it's something I didn't want to. Just like we talked about earlier, oh, thank goodness, it's something I didn't want to do.
Yeah,
you know. So it's, I think the concern, the doom and gloom, the panic, you know, for existing staff doesn't really need to be there, because it's really just going to take away the tedious, the boring, the mundane, and then the monotonous, you know, however you want to frame it.
And then that impacts the rest of the business, because now you've got, you know,
people are going to be happier, probably.
You're happier. But you also got the business owner who's going into the CRM, and, you know, when they're looking at the notes, they know that what they're seeing is correct, and it's not.
Well, it's actually there for a start.
It's there for a start, and it's also not the whimsical delusions. You know, like some people, like. I've always been a guy that's kind of doom and gloom in the notes in a CRM. You know, I'm not ready to put this to committee yet, whatever the case is. You know, I'm not ready to push this forward because I don't have 100% of the information. Some people look at it and they're like, done deal, man. So it eliminates that. So, you know, you're getting you can create a real source of truth from your information now. So incredible stuff. Not to shift to a negative, because I don't think it necessarily is, but this obviously does have a slightly different perspective for the next generation of people coming in. You know, so there's obviously the business owner, there's the existing staff, and then you've got the next wave coming in. You know, what does it mean for them? Is it as concerning, as negative, as doom and gloom as it may appear, or is there light at the end of the tunnel for that next generation of people coming through? I mean, you kind of touched on it with, you know, if you've kind of got someone in your team that's a bit of a whiz, and I think we talked the other day about a 16-year-old, I think you said, that had kind of put an agent into a robot dog. I mean, is the reality actually that the next generation is probably going to be the ones that have the best grip of this than anything else? They're so much better at using AI than we are. I think that's like an honest assessment of everything that I've seen at the moment is these kids are on it. So for the next generation, look, I mean, there's a lot of discussion at the moment whether, you know, I saw a podcast the other day saying, is there a point of people going into medical school? And, you know, people are freezing up on that and thinking about it and thinking, whoa. Look, I think one of the biggest changes that we're having is we're moving away from a knowledge market. So, you know, if before, you know, somebody went to NASA and they said, I know how to build your rocket ship. And they'd say, perfect, you're hired. Nowadays, you know, you come through to any business and you can say, I know how to build a rocket ship, and they pull out their phone and say, yeah, but I've got 5 tools.
I can
on
figure
here.
out how to do that myself.
I can also, like, what can you do for me? So we're moving into a different space at the moment, and it's kind of about, where can you provide your skill? And I think that's kind of the difference. It's very much a skills market nowadays, where knowledge is available to everybody all of the time. And now it's in the workplace as well. So for kids coming through, the impact is probably going to be they're gonna probably have different roles.
I think roles some will disappear, new ones will be created. Some will exist with a modification to it. I think what you touched on there that I really liked is the word skill. It's the skill set you have. When you go to university or you're studying to learn, or perhaps even not university, you're self-taught. What you're trying to do is gain a set of skills that is valuable to a business.
Yes.
That isn't going to change.
No.
What the job role is, what it's called, may disappear.
100%.
New ones might come about. But it's the skill set you provide to that job role. So it's the fixation, I think, on, will this job go? Will this role go? Maybe. But that's irrelevant. If you've built up a skill set, especially around the development of AI, you have the capability to use this tool, technology.
Of apps. Yeah.
It in itself, your role will develop based on the skill set you've acquired.
Yes.
And therefore, the generation coming through are probably going to be the most capable. As our generation was when it came to mobiles. They came around when we were young, we were kids still. It's that generation that adapted to it very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen here.
100%. I mean, if you think about like the social media boom, the big established advertising agencies and marketing agencies were having a look at what these 15, 16-year-olds were doing on social media because they were generating more money than the companies were.
Well, I mean, how many YouTubers or influencers are over the age of 40?
Exactly. So it's like don't worry about them. They're going to figure this out. But I think there's also going to be an area where I do think that there is a realistic element to the super team type of environment where if a single person business goes in there, but they really know how to solve a problem and they've got the tools around them they've built to kind of solve a problem, and you drop them into an environment and they kind of move about and they can start to draw information, whatever the case is. I don't think we're very far away from that.
No.
So we may even move towards more of a freelancer market where people go in very specifically to go and solve an issue.
If you take a look at every technological shift that's occurred, you take a look at the internet, .com era, 20 years ago, there weren't YouTubers. There weren't influencers. No. There weren't that many e-commerce businesses. All right, Amazon, you were perhaps ahead of the game on that one. But, the reality was it resulted in more jobs coming about, but they were different to what traditionally people were used to.
Yeah.
Think of the typewriter, shift from a typewriter to a computer. Suddenly that skill set still valuable to a digital world, to what it developed into, but the role changed.
I mean,
skill set was still useful, but the role changed.
You look at the shift from like the original computer, which were people at banks counting money, to an actual computer.
Abacus.
Yeah, exactly. So it does. It changes. It changes dramatically. Look, nobody's got the answer, and I think that's why nobody really wants to stick the flag in the ground and say we're going there.
Well, nobody has the answer, but we're giving you the answer.
Yeah.
In sessions like this and webinars that we run. So again, if you want to learn more about this technology and what it can do, come along to one of the webinars.
Yeah.
You're going to be hosting some. Love to see you there. And you're going to we're going to dig into more of this. And I think we're planning to, I'd love to have you back if you've got the time. And I think we can dig in a more in-depth way into each of these topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think as this technology evolves and changes, stay tuned, like and subscribe. Click the notification button to stay up to date with new releases. And we're going to continue to, provide you the information, declutter the noise, and give you the information you need to make action a reality. So thanks very much for joining me today, Matt.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate your time. And we'll speak soon. Take care.